Episode 1, Chapter 10. Chet turned his attention to the locker near his feet. It was open. A single packet waited inside. Chet claimed it. "You sit there," Mr. Farrow commanded. Chet looked into the small white cabin and found 2 chairs in a single window. The walls, ceiling, and floor were blank. Mr. Farrow sat in the window seat. Chet frowned but followed the man's instructions. The hatch thumped shut and hissed. Chet felt the cabin pressure begin to change. "Buckle in," said Mr. Farrow. Chet had already done so. He opened his packet and found a sheet of paper, a small metal square, and a capsule. He withdrew the metal square. "Don't lose that," Mr. Farrow said. Textured into one plane was something that reminded Chet of a mangled barcode. He ran his thumb across the rough surface. "What is it?" "Your access token. You need it to get through most doors and security checkpoints aboard the transport. Don't lose it." "All right." Chet wrapped the access token in his left fist. He fished the piece of paper from his packet and found more of that mangled barcode. On the other side was a short, handwritten note. Chet recognized CEO Krautwasser's small scrawl. The shuttle began to vibrate. Chet's heartbeat picked up the pace. "Are we taking off?" he asked. He looked over his shoulder at the cabin window, but his manager's head blocked the view. "Not yet," said Mr. Farrow. Chet returned his attention to the letter and started to read. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Eubanks. I am thrilled that you have decided to join us on this corporate adventure. This packet contains a capsule. Please put down this letter and ingest it. Now." Chet set the paper on his lap and withdrew the capsule from the bottom of his packet. Years of listening to his grandpa go on and on about medicine conspiracies had made Chet wary of pills. "You think your body causes headaches?" his grandpa liked to say. "That it's some sort of natural thing? Wrong. It's the chemicals in the pill you take to cure your headache that causes headaches." Chet felt his throat tighten and his mouth go dry. "Swallow it," commanded Mr. Farrow, "or you won't be allowed aboard the transport." Chet considered this a good enough reason to ignore his grandpa's warnings. He placed the capsule on his tongue and rolled it into his mouth. On his 5th swallow, he pulled the pill past his tongue. Chet continued reading the letter as the lump crawled down his esophagus. "Congratulations, you are one of the first humans to contract the UVI. It is possible that you already caught the virus from your new manager or myself. But this pill will accelerate the process. In a few minutes, your brain will be wired to receive universal speech and code. Your body will also begin producing the antibodies that will protect you from the alien diseases to which we are known to be susceptible. There are more than you would expect. UVI technology is the heart of Zivilius. Without it, the Alliance would fall apart. Once you can read the universal code on the other side of this paper, you will know that the UVI has done its work. Good luck." "Wow, a virus?" said Chet. "Told ya," his grandpa would scoff. Chet flipped the paper, but the writing remained nonsense. "It is a good virus, re-engineered for humans," Mr. Farrow noted. "We're taking off." The floor vibrated. Chet felt himself sink into his seat. The sensation left him breathless. A moment later, his weight returned to normal. Chet breathed deep. "Are we in space?" he asked. "No, we're moving down the runway." That was the drone pilot activating the ship's internal gravity field. "Oh." Chet tried looking through the cabin window, but Mr. Farrow's head continued to obstruct. "Can I watch just for a minute?" Mr. Farrow scowled but leaned back in his chair. Chet could see the canyon wall streak and recede as the shuttle took flight. The blue sky brightened and then, little by little, deepened to the color of Yogo sapphires. Chet couldn't help himself. He climbed from his seat and moved closer to the window. "Back to your seat," commanded Mr. Farrow. Chet ignored his manager. He leaned over the man's chair. Far below, he saw the ripple of clouds and land, and further afield, the ocean. "Is that the Pacific?" Chet asked. "Back to your seat," repeated Mr. Farrow. Chet could see Earth's gentle arc. Stars peered through the atmospheric haze. The arc tightened as they continued to ascend. The ship pitched to port, and Earth sank out of view. The universe expanded. Stars flooded Chet's eyes. His breath caught. "So fast," he marveled. It hadn't taken more than 5 minutes to get from land to the edge of space. And big. Back to your seat now, or I will write you up. The threat snagged Chet's attention. He realized that he and Mr. Farrow were close enough to kiss. Chet recoiled. I've never been written up before, he said. Sit. Sorry. Chet returned to his chair and buckled his seatbelt. I'll give you a pass this time because I know the excitement can be a little overwhelming. But for God's sake, protocol. You'd best start following our protocol or you will find yourself with a drawer full of pink slips. Okay, Chet said. He sighed and dropped his head. His eyes drifted to the letter on the floor. Chet leaned forward and pinched the paper between his fingers. He could understand the alien print. It was his contract, rendered in universal code. To his brain, the language felt like English, but he didn't need to read it line by line. A glimpse was all it took. There was something missing from the contract. Also, I promised to help Mr. Eubanks find love, Chet whispered. Maybe he forgot that. What? Asked Mr. Farrow. Nothing, Chet said. He turned back to the window and imagined Beatrix sitting in the seat instead of Mr. Farrow. This is wild, she would say. Her face would glow with Earth's blue. Chet imagined their eyes locking. You gotta come and see this. Chet turned away and whispered, or maybe he didn't forget. Chet recalled how the CEO had scribbled the promise on the back of the contract rather than the front. Maybe that meant it wasn't part of the contract, but it got me to sign. After a slow sigh, Chet admitted, I probably would have signed anyway. The realization carried him to a second conclusion. I should probably say goodbye. To whom? Asked Mr. Farrow. Chet said nothing.